This is a red pill hypothetical scenario. So if you have three women, one is 16, one is 36, and one is 56, so separated 20 years apart. And I'll use 16 going off of age of consent laws in the United States. I know many states is 18, like California, which I'm in, but some states are 17, some states are 16. So I broke down the three categories of this, like the younger girl, the 16, the more middle-aged at 36, and then the older woman at 56, for the example going off of age of consent. So 16, 17, or 18, so to speak, based on your age of consent laws being the idea of the younger example. And so that's why I'm using 16, 36, 56. You could also use 18, 38, 58 for the concept I'm about to go over, but just going off of the lowest age of consent that there is in America, the states with the lowest of 16, I'm just going to use that for the example. So 16, 36, and 56. Now there's very distinct differences between these three women in terms of what you're getting out of it as a man, because they're in completely different phases of their life. And so when it comes to red pill, a lot of people don't like how there's the implication of women hitting the wall or losing value with age, but then implying that men increase value with age. And it's not that women lose value with age as a human being or spiritual worth, but the trajectory is just different between men and women, especially when the man is looked for what he provides, what he's accomplishing, the money he's making, stuff like that. It's just a difference when he's a 16-year-old guy living with his mom, no job, versus a 36-year-old guy who's been working for years, maybe not just an entry-level position now, but moved up to a manager, maybe owns a business, makes residual income. 36 for a guy is different than himself at 16. And it's different for the woman too, but for very different reasons. So it's a different trajectory there. So talking as a man myself on this red pill content, for the example of this video, say you have three women, 16, 36, and 56. Now this all depends what you're looking for too as a man. Do you want kids or not? That's very important based on how you're interacting with these women. But so say you want kids. So obviously the 56-year-old cannot have kids. She's past menopause. So you're not going to have kids with the 56-year-old. Now the other two, you got the 16 and the 36. The 16, she's younger. She's in those prime years. You know, just being a high school student, she would have had her period within the last couple years, you know? So it's a different than the 36-year-old who's on the opposite end of that, who's on the decline of her fertility, where if she does want kids, she's got to do it like now. Otherwise, not only does the chance decrease of even getting pregnant, but then just birth complications and all of that. And then just meeting a guy in general and having the time to, whether it's like dating and getting to know each other before you even decide to move in and have a kid and raise a family. So, I mean, the 36-year-old has to get going, is a little bit more pressured in a way that the 16-year-old isn't. So as a guy, one thing that men have been conditioned to believe is that you need to stick with somebody your age, otherwise it looks weird or creepy, right? So like if you're a guy in your 20s, why in the world would you be going for a woman 30 years older that's a cougar? And also too, if you're a guy in your 30s, why would you be going for like the 18-year-old girl or whatever? You're in your 40s going for the 18, 50s, whatever. But the age differences, a lot of people will have their opinion on that. But that's with anything. So I mean, you could be with a woman your age to the exact day. You could have the same birthday, and everyone's gonna have their opinion on like what your relationship is, or the motives or the intentions. So you can't really live your life caring what people are gonna think about it between consenting adults. And I'm in California where the age of consent is 18, and I'm using this video example at 16. But see, this is another thing too that people just kind of get really confused about, is they live their whole life with their opinions based off of what other human beings said. So in California, where it's 18, people think, okay, well, that's legal now. Okay, they're consenting adults. If you just drive across the border to Vegas, go to Nevada, it's 16 there. So it's like okay there in this portion of land. Over here in California, that's not okay. So obviously we have to draw the line somewhere, right? You have to draw consent somewhere, but the whole like notion that if you have sex with a girl that's 17 and 364 days, you're this like really creepy bad guy in California, but then you just hop across an imaginary border and you're in Vegas and now it's okay. Like, that's a little corny. So yes, you have to draw the line somewhere, but it's not to say that someone's creepy for a big age difference, because there's a gray area to that. What age does someone become old enough to have a basic sense of what they're doing in terms of who they interact with? So, like I said, for the purpose of this video, explaining this concept to guys, you don't have to start at the bottom of the economy, high school after 18, college 22, entry-level job, working your way up, going through the ringers of life, maybe get a promotion, work your whole 20s to get that promotion, and then maybe you start owning your own business. You don't have to put in all that work and then become 36 yourself as a man and think that you just have to be with the 36-year-old woman. Because like I mentioned before, the trajectories of that are different. So if she's looking for babies or commitment or marriage or whatever, you at 36, you got to ask yourself, would she have gone for that marriage or those kids if you guys were 21? Or would she have thought, oh, well, I just turned 21, it's the bar time,
Yeah.
right? And so that stuff comes into play. So as a 36-year-old guy, it's not to say that you can't be with a 36-year-old woman that's your age if it's compatible, or you find what you feel is the timing of things and you think something matches up accordingly. Do what you're gonna do, but don't feel that you have to be with the 36-year-old woman. There's nothing weird or creepy if you're 36 years old as a man, finally have established yourself to be a manager of something or an owner, residual income, a little bit more time freedom. You've worked all those years. There's nothing weird or creepy about being with an 18-year-old girl, or, you know, if age of consent law. I mean, I'm in California, so I just said 18, but apparently if you're in Vegas, you can go to 16 because other human beings said that that was okay over there within this imaginary border of land. So, yeah, but like the point though is what I'm saying is when you look at the timeline of men and women with that, it's different in terms of what each gender is viewing the other. So when you have these three women in this hypothetical that I have, now that I just went over with kids. Now when it comes to just dating or casual hookups or hanging out, whatever, the three also have differences. Whereas, because this is where it gets complicated too, because maybe you and a woman have an agreement like, okay, we're not going to have kids, we're just going to keep it casual, and we'll save that for later, or we don't want kids. Well, she could just say that she doesn't want kids, and then knowing that she's at the end of the line and you come in as the 36-year-old now with a decent job, and she just says like, oh yeah, I'm on birth control, or you know, just whatever, just like complications happen, someone lies, someone forgets to take, you know, birth control, or the birth control you use not even being 100% effective. So even if you're if you go into that with all three of them, the 16, the 36, and the 56, the 56 for sure is not going to be able to have your kid, but the 16 and the 36 could. So even if you agree, hey, we're not going to have a kid, there's still the chance for that. The only difference with that though is that a lot of times with the 36, you could find yourself as a guy just being the beta provider, coming in at the end of the line when she needs a resource, or she's lived enough to realize that, okay, younger girls are starting to get a lot of attention, I need to really think of my biological clock. And so you come in as the fall guy, knowing that you have a decent job now and she has this short window of time to have a kid. Not only just have a kid, but then using her her beauty and her youth for what she has left of it to lock down a guy for multiple reasons, not just kids, but just life is hard, and in this world that has this monetary system that we all have to play under, it takes a little bit of money to afford enough food and like a comfortable place to sleep and to not be stressed out all the time. So does she really want to work some job that she hates her whole life being maybe she's like a secretary somewhere. Does she really want to do that, where she comes in and then got the boss that's always micromanaging her, and then she comes home to whatever family situation? Does she really want to do this like office 9 to 5, when she could meet a man that has his own success, where she could live with him and be a little bit less stressed? So it's not just with kids in terms of her locking down a guy in some fashion. She's going to look to lock down a guy, whether that's his babies, his sperm, his job, his money, his resources, his looks, his personality. There's like an emotional connection, a spiritual connection. She's going to look to lock down men in some capacity. So like I already went over kids, where it's the woman at the end of the biological clock being the 36, and the woman in the prime where she still has a bunch of choices, and she doesn't have she has time on her side. So if a woman at like 16 was to choose you for the father of her kids, there's a little bit more of she could have looked at other options. She could have just enjoyed her youth. She could have just partied. She could have went to college and focused on career or personal goals, or finding a better option than you, according to her perspective. So it's a little bit different for the 16-year-old girl to give you that, as opposed to the 36-year-old girl. But now with the example that I'm saying, where you go into it with the woman where you decide you don't want kids, but then again, she could just be saying that. She could lie about it. She could say it initially and actually be truthful about it, but maybe you guys do develop a connection later, and knowing that she's at that phase in her life and that she's 36, it turns into something where she changes her mind, and then down the line she does want kids, and you and her have been hitting it off for a little bit, dating or whatever, for a year or two, and she's 36, and the time is coming, so then forgets to take birth control, or it gets you in a situation where you're not thinking, and now you're tied down with this starting a family when you thought you were going in as casual. So this is just something to think about. The difference with that, though, is if you both go into it saying we for sure don't want any, and then something happens where you do have them, at least with the 16, you're getting her at a time where it's before the bar years, before the college, before all the society programming. There's a little bit more of a genuine her picking you. And it's not to say that women are going to lose value with age, or that when they get older they still can't pick you or find you attractive, but it's a different phase of her life. So those are going to be the differences between the 16, the 36, and the 56.